Welcome back. All right, so news of the day today, and I get to use my new black Detroit hat, and matches this perfectly. There you go. Sometimes accidental these things come together. So injury news first off the bat: Tanner Pearson, he's out for 4 weeks, lower body injury. He rolled his ankle, and it makes it interesting because Jim Benning wants to re-sign him. My answer to that is, well, okay, Jim, but he's 28. So I like Tanner Pearson. I do like what he does for the lineup, but let's make sure it's a reasonable contract and not something like some of the contracts he's signed. So I have some nerves about that, but this also, I would think, affects his value at the trade deadline. Absolutely affects his value at the trade deadline. Just like Bernier's injury last night, if it was as bad as it looks, and I hope it's not, that's going to hurt the Detroit Red Wings at the deadline. So yeah, Pearson being out, I don't know if that's going to affect any of the negotiations or how the Canucks approach this, but for anybody thinking, well, maybe they'll rent him out at the deadline, that'll probably make it so that at the very least they lose value in what they get back. Joey Daccord, within a week, goes from being this really good story, and this guy gets his first win, and isn't that great? Isn't that nice, too? And he's out for the year because Ottawa. So, yeah, Murray, Hogberg, now Daccord. They've got Forsberg starting in the AHL tomorrow. So we'll see what ends up happening here. So Daccord's out for the season, and it's too bad because it felt like this was a real opportunity for this kid, where something wasn't going to happen for him unless, we see guys get hurt ahead of him. We'll see if Gustafsson gets starts then for a bit. I don't know. How far down the rabbit hole is this going to go? We're going to wake up someday and go, how is Peter Sidorkiewicz starting for the Ottawa Senators? How did that happen again? So, there you go. Anyways, yeah, all the best to Daccord, and hopefully this coming fall he's a part of their roster and gets a chance to prove himself again, because he seems at the very least like a decent option for the backup next year. But we'll see what happens. Waiver wire today. Michael Chaput's on waivers for the Arizona Coyotes. Michael Amadio is on waivers for the LA Kings. In fact, I think all three of these guys are named Michael. Apparently, if your name's Michael and you're going to get waived, it has to be on Friday, March 19th. But Amadio being on waivers is interesting because I like Amadio. He's not producing this year. It has been a rough year for him. Might be a smart pickup for a team if they grab him because he's reasonably priced. He has had a slow year, but I think he's a decent bottom six option. We'll see. And then Hauser, goaltender, signed by the Buffalo Sabres. Before he can join their AHL team, he has to go through waivers. Just the fact they've signed him to a contract at this time of year means he has to pass through waivers before he's officially their property. But yeah, I can't see anybody taking him. Though there are teams, hi Ottawa, who definitely probably just keep stockpiling goaltenders. So maybe that happens. Maybe they yeah, well, we'll take him too. Who else is on? Nope, we'll take that. Nope, that's fine. We have 6 goalies. It's fine. We've had 3 injured in a week. We need as many as possible. So yeah, it's not 3 in a week, but it feels like it. We'll see if any of these guys get claimed. It's possible, but we'll see. Wayne Simmons, he returns tonight for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that's good news for Toronto. It made a huge difference to Toronto when we're looking at the record of their last 10, and now they're 5-5, and they don't seem like they're quite as good. Simmons being out is part of that. He's not the biggest part of it. Like it's not the major reason why Toronto's had its struggles lately, but it's definitely part of it. So hopefully with Simmons being back, that helps to get Toronto back in order. We'll see, right? He just his ability to go to the net and the physicality he brings to Toronto, it makes a big difference. Interesting news. Kevin Weeks is reporting that interest has picked up around the league in some of the goaltenders. He included Bernier, and he did put in parentheses that, who's out injured now. And he mentioned Jonathan Quick. And it's a question that I've asked before. I've asked it for the last 2 years. Could the LA Kings end up moving Jonathan Quick? And there are Kings fans who are very resistant to the idea, but I wonder if that's changed now. I wonder if there's more acceptance that, yeah, Quick could end up being on the move, and that's okay, or if there are still a lot of fans who would say, no, he is kind of a legend in LA, and the 2 Stanley Cups kind of mean, yeah, we'd like to hold on to him if we can kind of thing. But it'll be interesting to see if there's that market for Jonathan Quick, and if he does end up being moved. That contract, as recently as I'll say 2 years ago, was seen as virtually immovable. But I think we've seen since then contracts do get moved. So we'll see whether or not Jonathan Quick gets moved at the deadline. I think Pearson has shown that he's capable of being a starter, which 2 years ago may have been the debate. He's started their last 3 games. He's looked pretty good. I say go for it. You can get a good return for Jonathan Quick. Go for it. Vasilevsky makes news as well. 3 straight years. 3 straight years he's had a 10-game winning streak. Now, people can pawn this off and say, well, but look at the team that he's playing on. So, of course, you could also then point to McElhinney's numbers and say, but with McElhinney, it's not really a winning streak for him. And then again, that's where a naysayer could say, yeah, but it's McElhinney. It's not the same. So, right, but again, Vasilevsky's an excellent goaltender. When you're winning this many games, you're going to get Vezina notice. And not only that, but he is a previous winner of the Vezina Trophy. That's going to get him noticed too. And just everything kind of comes together. And Tampa Bay's run that they've been on, Vasilevsky's a huge part of it. I know he doesn't get the credit for that, but he deserves credit for that. So 3 straight seasons of 10 wins in a row, that's a pretty interesting record that he's setting there, and we'll see whether or not he can do it again next year. If he can get 4. I'm saying yes. So we have 24 days left till the trade deadline again for the teams in Canada. That means there's 10 days if you want to trade for somebody you can have right at the deadline because the 14-day quarantine isn't going anywhere right now. The discussions between teams and the government in Canada and all that, it's not. I don't think it's going to happen. I'd be very surprised if that changed, just because then it has to change for everybody. So if they make an exception for the NHL, then they have to make an exception, and it becomes a brand new rule. So I think the NHL likely will be stuck with this being the 14-day quarantine as it is, unless they can work something out. But at this point, it doesn't look like that happens. And we'll see whether or not Canadian teams are really busy at this time of year or not. And we'll see if Canadian teams are likely then to trade with one another if they can't trade across the border. So, again, be interesting to see what happens. So CHL, we've had QMJHL's played mostly. They've had their shutdowns along the way. WHL's getting started. OHL, there's a plan to get things started and have some kind of a small tournament. But what that's caused is teenagers ended up homeless. So not literally. I mean that they didn't have a team to play for. So without having a junior team to assign them to at a training camp, for this 1 year, there was an allowance for them to be in the American League. Here's the problem. They played very well in the American Hockey League. And I think what we're seeing is that some of these players, and again, it's not really a surprise, they can play very well at the American League, and it helps prepare them for the NHL. We've talked about guys who come straight into the NHL from the CHL and how they can bust and how they get rushed to the league. This is something that's existed in the NHL for decades. This has been a major problem in the NHL for a long time, where you have a player who's too good for the CHL. He'd put up 200 points in the CHL if he stayed down there. But in the NHL level, he's not quite strong enough. Maybe he doesn't quite have the speed. There's just things you need to work on with his game. So you don't want him languishing as a healthy scratch or as a fourth liner in the NHL, but it doesn't help to send him to the CHL and have him just dominate a league where he's basically learned everything he can. So these players being in the AHL has shown, some time in the AHL can be really, really good. And so for players who are under the age of 20, they have to get sent back to the junior leagues if they don't make the NHL. And this year, the only reason that that's been changed is for the pandemic, but and for the shutdowns that's caused. But the CHL transfer agreement is up. It's done. So the NHL, in renegotiating this, and I've suggested before, there might be, like we have in the CHL, you have guys who can come up and play in the CHL as exceptional players, right? You get exceptional status. Maybe have every NHL team have one exceptional status player, maybe 2, where they can say, these guys are so good, but they're not quite NHL ready. I don't want to send them back to Oshawa. I don't want to send them back to Mississauga. I don't want to send him back to the Q because I feel like he can be a star player in the AHL, even if he's not ready for the NHL yet, or at the very least he can develop. And so we'll see if that changes, because again, teams put a lot of money into scouting and developing players, and I think having the ability to put them in the American League to directly impact them, even as teenagers, in their development, I think that can only lead to good things. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as to whether or not this could actually change. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.